All right, so let's dive right into another deep dive. Today, we're heading over to Jamaica, where things are getting really interesting, especially with the People's National Party, the PNP.
Right.
They've made a pretty surprising move, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, a bit unexpected.
Choosing to sit out this upcoming by-election in Trelawny Southern. Instead, they're putting all their energy into the local government elections coming up.
Well, by-elections are usually a big deal. I mean, they can really give a good sense of where the public stands.
Yeah.
It's a chance for the parties to sort of test the waters, see how popular they are, and then adjust their strategies before a general election. So the PNP deciding to skip this one, well, it definitely raises some eyebrows. Makes you wonder what they're thinking.
Totally agree. It really does make you wonder. Do they think they're going to lose in Trelawny Southern, or is there something else going on here? But to really understand this whole thing, I think we need to look at the candidate that the Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, has put forward, Marisa Dalrymple-Philibert. Now, she's not exactly a new face in this constituency, but she's got, well, let's just say she comes with a history.
Yes, some baggage there. Let's delve into that.
Yeah.
Dalrymple-Philibert, she actually resigned from this exact position back in September 2023. And that was after 8 criminal charges came her way.
Wow, 8?
Yes, for making false statements in her statutory declarations to the Integrity Commission. And for those who don't know, that's Jamaica's main group tackling corruption.
Right, so for those of us who maybe aren't totally up on our Jamaican politics, could you break down what these statutory declarations actually are and why are they such a big deal in all of this?
Sure. At their core, these are financial disclosures.
Yeah.
Every public official in Jamaica has to submit them. It's all about transparency, keeping things above board.
Makes sense.
It helps prevent those conflicts of interest and ensures that no one's, let's say, lining their pockets improperly using their position.
So, like a financial check on those in power.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, that makes sense. But what exactly did Dalrymple-Philibert leave out of these declarations? What's the big issue?
The big one. A Mercedes-Benz. Seems it was missing from her filings for quite a few years.
Mercedes.
And this wasn't just any car. There were a lot of questions about how she got it, especially because she got this 20% duty concession, which raised red flags about potential abuse of power, maybe even some special treatment.
Okay, so we've got a missing Mercedes, whispers about preferential treatment. That's already pretty suspicious. But then on top of that, you've got the timing of her court date, December 6th, which, if I'm not mistaken, is after the by-election on November 22nd.
You are correct. The timing is definitely interesting, to say the least.
It really is.
It brings up a pretty important question. Could she actually be elected before the court even decides if she'll go to trial for these charges? What does that say about public trust, about accountability in Jamaican politics?
And to make things even more interesting, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, he's also the leader of the JLP, right?
That's right.
Well, he's justifying his choice to pick her again by saying it's the will of the people.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's definitely a statement that can be interpreted in a few ways. On the face of it, he's all for democracy, putting the power in the hands of the people. But it also makes you wonder, does being popular outweigh potential corruption, ethical concerns? Does the will of the people let someone off the hook for their actions? Those are some pretty weighty questions, and this situation really puts them front and center, doesn't it?
It really gets you thinking, right, about that balance between what the people want and holding those in power accountable. It's not just a matter of, oh, she's well-liked, but what message does it send when someone facing these serious charges can still be elected?
And that's what a lot of people in Jamaica are really grappling with right now. You've got Danielle Archer, for instance. She heads up the National Integrity Action. Yeah. She's been very vocal about this whole thing, called the decision to let Dalrymple-Philibert run again completely unacceptable. She argues it sets a dangerous precedent, especially for young people looking up to their leaders.
It makes you think, right? If you see someone who might even go to trial for serious offenses, but they're still in a position of power, what does that say about honesty, integrity, all of that?
Absolutely. It highlights that tension that we always see between political strategy, what's convenient for the party, and then the ethical considerations, what's actually right. Lloyd B. Smith, he's a political commentator, summed it up pretty well, I think. He said that the JLP's move was politically correct, but morally incorrect. A perfect way to put it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's one of those situations where there's no easy answer. On the one hand, people should have the right to choose who represents them,
right,
even if those people have some, questionable things in their past. But then on the other hand, you worry about trust in the system, right? What message are we sending about accountability?
And we can't forget, This is a by-election we're talking about.
Right.
They're seen as a bit of a temperature check for the ruling party. You see how their policies are landing with the public. So, in a way, the JLP is putting a lot of faith out there that people in Trelawny Southern will prioritize party loyalty over, over any concerns about Dalrymple-Philibert's past.
It's a gamble, for sure. So it's not just about her popularity, but about the party's message, their ability to really sway those voters. And this is where the PNP's choice, focusing on the local government elections instead, becomes even more interesting, don't you think? It's like they're making a very calculated move, concentrating on what they see as a more winnable battle.
Absolutely. It's strategic. By opting out of the Trelawny Southern by-election, the PNP dodges a potential loss that could really hurt them going into those local government elections. And those are happening nationwide, right?
Yeah.
Huge implications there for development resource allocation in communities. They're always tightly contested. So the PNP's focus on those suggests they see them as absolutely crucial for their overall strategy.
It makes you think they might be seeing something in the public sentiment in Trelawny Southern that we're missing. Maybe their internal polls are telling them something. Maybe they've done some analysis and decided this by-election just isn't worth it for them right now. Adds another layer to this whole thing, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There's always more than meets the eye. That's what's so fascinating about politics, isn't it? It's strategy, it's perception, it's trying to connect with what the voters want, what they need. And in this case, well, we've got the perfect example of how all of those things can clash, creating this situation with no easy answers and potentially some big consequences down the line.
So we've got a candidate with these serious charges, a public that seems split, a governing party relying on their popularity, and the opposition. Well, they seem to be making a strategic retreat. What happens next? Where do we go from here?
I think all eyes are on Trelawny Southern now. How will the JLP handle these concerns about their candidate? Do they try to change the subject? Or do they just keep saying the will of the people over and over? And how will the voters react to that? Will they buy it? Or will they see it for what it is and attempt to avoid the real issues? Those are the questions that will decide this election. And who knows, it might even have a ripple effect on the bigger picture of Jamaican politics.
It's like we're watching this political drama play out right in front of us. You've got this high-stakes by-election, a controversial candidate, the ruling party clinging to power, and the opposition making their moves behind the scenes. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And, it all comes back to that fundamental question. What matters more in a democracy? The people's choice or concerns about ethics?
Yeah.
Does being popular mean you don't have to be accountable? Those are the questions everyone's going to be asking as this election goes on.
And those answers could have huge implications even beyond this one by-election.
Absolutely.
It sets a precedent for the future, right?
Yeah.
Shapes how the public thinks about the kind of leadership they'll accept.
Exactly. This isn't just about Trelawny Southern. It's about Jamaican politics as a whole.
Yeah.
What values are they prioritizing? It's a real test for institutions like the Integrity Commission. Can they actually hold those in power accountable?
It's like Jamaica's looking in the mirror and asking, what kind of democracy do we want? What are our deal breakers when it comes to leadership? And the people of Trelawny Southern, they're the ones who will answer that with their votes.
Right, and that's what makes this by-election so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like a little snapshot of the bigger picture, those challenges that democracies face all over the world. Power and the will of the people, they don't always line up perfectly. Figuring out how to balance that, well, like a constant process.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we're left with a lot to think about.
Definitely.
This isn't a black and white situation. There are strong arguments on both sides. At the end of the day, it's up to each person to consider the questions we've talked about and decide what matters most to them when it comes to leadership. What do they expect from their representatives?
Couldn't agree more. And maybe, just maybe, this deep dive has sparked some new ideas for you. Got you asking new questions. If so, we'll keep exploring. Stay involved. After all, the future of Jamaica, it depends on the conversations we have, the choices we make. So keep talking, keep thinking, and stay curious.
Absolutely.